Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is Chad here with another In the OT podcast for BetUpSportsBlog.com. Today, I'm here to break down the absolutely stupid notion that Roger Goodell had today, believing that there should absolutely be American football as an Olympic sport in the future. This was discussed on the Dan Patrick Show, and I'll take the quotes that were extremely telling and post them on my website, BetUpSportsBlog.com, for you guys to have an opportunity to read as well. And the reason why I believe this is an absolutely stupid idea is because of the fact that it wouldn't even be close. There'd be zero competition whatsoever for the American team. And you guys think right now that basketball is an absolute joke with the way the U.S. is steamrolling teams by 30, 40, 50, and even 80 points yesterday. It wouldn't even be comparable in the NFL. If they were to play any team, I don't even know who would be considered the second best team in the world. They'd win at least by 100 points. At least in basketball, it has been somewhat competitive in previous years. It's not like the U.S. has won a gold medal every single time the pros have gone there. They've also lost at FIBA World Championship events. You go back to 2004 in the Olympics, they didn't win. There was a few years ago they lost that tournament to Argentina as well. So you can't go out there and say that basketball has the same blowouts, whereas that's exactly what you'd see here in football, and everyone gets all up in arms for this year. And I think basketball is the best sport to compare to because it's one of the only ones where you see that much of a dominating difference from the U.S. to even the second place team. And, you look at the other teams that are competitive when it comes to international basketball, at least there's a little bit of NBA player presence. You look at a team like Spain, who has pretty much a full NBA roster. France has 6-7 guys. Argentina, the same thing. Brazil, the same thing. And even teams that don't have as many NBA players on them play extremely good fundamental basketball, i.e. a Lithuanian and Australia, so they can somewhat be in the mix for at least a medal. And when you look at final results, yes, the U.S. has blown out some teams like Tunisia and Nigeria, but when they go up against teams like Argentina and Spain, it's no guarantee. And even if they win, it's generally only by 10, 12, 14, maybe 20 points. It's not like it would be in football where they'd win 100 plus to nothing every single time they stepped on the field, and there'd be zero competitive balance whatsoever. And when you look at basketball as a whole, it's a way more international game because of the fact that there are leagues played in many countries across the world. Outside of North America, can you guys please tell me the professional football leagues that are out there? Not a chance. What? Because there's a little bit of an NFL Europe for a few years, and Germany and Holland? Give me a break. That is not nearly enough of worldwide notoriety and exposure to have it in the Olympics. It makes no sense whatsoever. I'd be shocked if there's more than 2% of NFL players that are not American, and then you'd have trouble even getting teams on the field that would be somewhat competitive, or at least in basketball you can still do that from the points that I just mentioned prior to that. And then furthermore, from a logistical standpoint, how do they plan on doing this in 2 weeks when we know that football, the high physical contact sport that it is, requires a certain amount of days off between games? We know in the NFL it's a week, in the CFL you can do it on 4 or 5 days short rest notice. But how would they do that in 2 weeks? It just wouldn't work if you want to have a preliminary round tournament style like all the team sports do and then go into playoffs. You need at least a month and a half. So that point completely would not help them out whatsoever. To me, this is just Roger Goodell being extremely greedy, wanting to milk the NFL for every dollar they can and profit. And I think he's off his rocker to believe that this sport is growing leaps and bounds on an international stage. Okay, sure, yeah, it's getting more popular than it was, but that doesn't justify the fact that it should be an Olympic sport. There's many other sports that have come from nowhere and have grown across the world, but that doesn't mean that they are necessarily going to be competitive enough to field teams outside of the United States. And when you look at it, he wants to come on record and say that it's been successful in England because they've sold out the last few years when they've gone there to Wembley Stadium. They're thinking about putting a franchise there in the future. They're thinking about 2 games in 2013. Okay, great. That is one market. You were talking about the UK. What about all the other countries in the world? And you also have to factor in that the UK is the most similar to the United States from it being, a Western civilization, being capitalistic, having a democracy, and also the money factor of being able to afford to play the sport, and also the Brits love gambling as well. So you factor that in, and it automatically gets the intrigue of that nationality to be more into it. And don't get faked out by a game here and a game there. That's just one test sample. The only way to really know if it would work in other countries is if you had a long-term schedule there, because everybody gets caught up in the hype for something that's happening now and it's coming once a year type of thing versus having it there consistently. So that's why I don't buy that at all. And he wants to come out here and say 5 years ago only 40 countries in the world were registered to play American football, and today there's 64. Please tell me who those additional 24 countries are and how they would be competitive in American football. This is just an absolute joke of an idea, and Roger Goodell should realize that the true football sport that is loved by the world and is by far the most popular is the European-style football. And this is coming from someone here who will have no problem admitting that it's being the fact, even though I don't really like soccer, and I much prefer the NFL. Keep it where it's popular. Keep it where people want it, which is North America, more so in the United States, instead of trying to tap into markets where it's very, very fringe and trying to impose its way into the Olympics, where it wouldn't work from a logistics standpoint, and it wouldn't work from a competitive balance and a talent standpoint of the other countries even being close to field teams. Maybe in 50 to 60 years, you can reconsider. But right now, this man is completely off his rocker. Chad here with another In the OT podcast.